Have you ever noticed how someone who used to be emotionally distant suddenly starts changing little things about themselves when you're around? They're not confessing their feelings. They're not texting, "I miss you." But out of nowhere, they're dressing better, talking about the gym, mentioning therapy. They start improving, but subtly, strategically, and only when you're in the picture. Now, here's the truth. When an avoidant is secretly in love, they don't chase you. They transform in your presence. Why? Because your presence does something rare. It activates them. Avoidants are masters at living in control. They've trained themselves to keep emotions locked behind a wall of logic, detachment, and self-sufficiency. But when they begin to fall for someone, especially someone emotionally grounded, their defense mechanisms start to short circuit. Suddenly, the very identity they've built to keep people out starts to feel too small. Not because you're asking for more, but because their soul is. You see, love doesn't feel like romance to an avoidant. It feels like exposure. It's threatening. It challenges their carefully crafted sense of independence. They've told themselves the story, "I don't need anyone, I'm fine alone." But then you walk in, and they begin to see their reflection in a new mirror. A reflection that whispers, "You could be more. You could become something greater with her." That's why they don't just open up or pour out affection like a secure person might. No, an avoidance love leaks out and shifts in effort. And what seems like self-improvement, they don't say, "I want you." Instead, they begin preparing to be someone worthy of being wanted. That's the irony. The avoidant who's falling for you doesn't run toward you. They run toward themselves. But it's still about you. It's always been about you. You inspired the shift. They start showing up to life a little differently, going deeper in their work, eating better, reading more, making cryptic comments like, "I've just been thinking about who I want to be." But don't be fooled. That's not random. It's not a coincidence. That's the silent storm of affection they can't verbalize, but are acting out through change. And here's where it gets deeper. Psychologically, an avoidant doesn't believe love is safe. They were wired, often in childhood, to equate closeness with pain or betrayal. So when real love begins to stir inside them, it doesn't feel exciting, it feels dangerous. The strange behavior, the subtle upgrades, the silent efforts. It's their way of building armor before they risk vulnerability. It's their attempt to earn the right to stay near you without ever saying it. It's humbling to realize that some people express love not through words or direct pursuit, but through evolution, through becoming. And avoidant love is a paradox. They're terrified to need you, but terrified to lose you. So they work on themselves in the shadows, hoping maybe if they become better, they'll finally deserve the safety they've never trusted before. Now, don't get it twisted. This doesn't mean you wait around for someone to fix themselves while you put your life on hold. No, what this means is pay attention to the pattern, not the performance. If someone avoids words but shows change when you're near, you're not imagining things. You're witnessing one of the most vulnerable confessions of love an avoidant can offer. And that's powerful. Because change that comes from fear is survival. But change that comes from love, that's transformation. And transformation is never loud. It's quiet, intentional, personal. It's the kind of shift that only someone who sees you as worth it will attempt, especially when they built their whole life around not needing anyone at all. So the next time you wonder if the avoidant in your life truly feels something, watch what they do when you're around. Not just how they treat you, but who they become in your presence. That's where the truth hides. You won't hear "I love you" from their lips, but you might see it in their discipline, in their effort, in the way they start trying to become the person you believe they could be before they ever did. Sometimes the most honest I love you doesn't come in words. It comes in who they're becoming because of you. Have you ever deal with someone who disappears the moment things feel close, yet somehow they still manage to stay around, not physically, not emotionally, but digitally, subtly, and psychologically? They're there, watching, observing, silent, and you're left wondering, if they don't care, why are they still watching me like a hawk? So let's break it down. Avoidants don't fall in love like the rest of the world. They don't show affection through closeness. They show it through distance. That may sound backward, but that's exactly how their internal wiring functions. For an avoidant, love isn't a source of safety, it's a source of threat. So when they start to develop real feelings, especially the kind of feelings that shake the walls they've built around their heart, their natural instinct is not to move toward you, but to retreat. But here's what most people miss. The retreat is not rejection. It's a response to intensity. The closer they feel to you emotionally, the more afraid they are of losing control over that feeling. Vulnerability for them is like walking a tightrope without a safety net. It's paralyzing. So what do? They vanish, ghost, go cold. But in that silence, they don't forget you. In fact, that's usually when they start thinking about you more. And not just thinking, watching. This is one of the strangest, most frustrating contradictions of the avoidant attachment system. They'll go no contact and then monitor everything. Your stories, your posts, your likes, mutual friends, little breadcrumbs of presence. They track you without engaging because that allows them to stay emotionally tethered without risking direct vulnerability. They want to be close without the risk of being seen. You see, avoidance isn't just about physical space. It's about emotional safety. And when they feel something deep, something real, they panic. They need distance to regulate that internal storm. But that doesn't mean they stop caring. It means they're fighting an inner war between the desire for intimacy and the fear of annihilation. Being close to you feels amazing until it feels too good. Then their brain flips the switch, danger detected. So they run. But while they run, they obsess. Because underneath all that self-protection is still a human being who longs for connection. And when someone meaningful enters their life, someone who sees them, challenges them, doesn't chase, doesn't collapse, they remember. Even in silence, even in withdrawal, even in the chaos, you're not out of their mind. You're etched into it. This is why their behavior seems so strange. They push you away, and yet if you post something emotional, they're the first to view it. If you go silent, they linger. They want to know, are you okay without them? Have you moved on? Are you dating someone else? Do you miss them too? But they don't reach out because that would make them vulnerable again. That would force them to risk being rejected, abandoned, or exposed. And for an avoidant, those aren't small fears. They are primal. Now here's the truth. If someone is obsessed with watching you after pulling away, you're not just another person to them. You're a trigger, and not in a negative sense. You're a trigger for growth, for reflection, for emotion. You represent something deeper than comfort. You represent the possibility of connection without control. And that's terrifying to someone who built their identity on not needing anyone. But you need to understand something critical. This is not your invitation to chase them. It's not your job to interpret breadcrumbs as permission to re-engage. In fact, that's the test. The avoidant watches to see if you'll break your own boundaries to soothe their discomfort. And the more you hold the line, the more you show emotional consistency without collapsing, the more intrigued and internally conflicted they become. Because love for the avoidant doesn't ignite through pressure, it ignites through stability, through absence, through the realization that their silence didn't erase the bond, they're just now seeing how strong it actually is. That's why your energy is your message, the way you carry yourself in the aftermath, the way you continue growing, moving, living, that's what they're watching. They're not just checking in on your life. They're checking in on whether your love had conditions, whether your presence was real, whether your silence is punishment or power. So when the avoidant retreats and starts watching from the shadows, don't assume you've lost them. Often, that's when you've impacted them the most. And sometimes the loudest cry of "I love you" from an avoidant is silence, wrapped in attention. Let them watch. Let them feel. And if their love is real, it won't stay hidden forever. Have you ever found yourself wondering why someone who seems to care about you always finds a way to challenge you, question you, even push your buttons? Especially someone who's emotionally avoidant. They're not complimenting you endlessly. They're not overly affectionate. In fact, it almost feels like they're constantly testing your patience, your values, your limits. But here's the twist. That's not disrespect. That's not disinterest. That's a defense mechanism hiding love. When an avoidant starts catching real feelings, they don't lean in like securely attached people. They lean back. But they keep provoking. It's subtle, it's psychological, and it's deeply rooted in fear. They challenge you not because they want you gone, but because they want to know one thing. Are you safe? You see, most people think of love as sweetness, ease, and comfort. But for someone with an avoidant attachment style, love doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like chaos. It feels like threat. And so when they start loving you, they need to test you. They poke your emotional boundaries, challenge your perspective, argue over small things, not to destroy connection, but to evaluate its strength. This is primal. To the avoidant, closeness historically meant danger. Maybe it meant betrayal, loss, rejection, or shame. So now when something good, something real shows up, they don't know how to receive it. Instead of relaxing into intimacy, they provoke it. Instead of saying, "I trust you," they push to see if you'll run. Let that sink in. They don't want to hurt you, but they need to know, if I show you the mess, will you still stand here? And so the challenges begin. You'll notice the avoidant starts nitpicking things you say, challenging your beliefs, or disagreeing when agreement would be easier. Why? Because they're watching how you handle conflict. They're looking to see if your connection is conditional, if love disappears when things get hard, or if you stay regulated. It's not a conscious strategy, but a survival reflex. And the more they love you, the more they'll test you. And here's the deep part. This isn't about manipulation. It's about emotional regulation through external stimulation. Their nervous system is so dysregulated by closeness that it tries to create distance through friction. They don't have the internal tools to say, "I'm scared to love you." So instead, they create safe chaos to validate their fears and give themselves space to breathe. But here's where the power lies for you. When an avoidant challenges you, you have a choice. You can react with anger, with insecurity, with the desire to chase or correct, or you can stand still, emotionally grounded. You can show that your love isn't fragile, that you're not here for the fantasy, you're here for real. Because here's the kicker, avoidants fall in love with stability, with groundedness, with someone who doesn't collapse under the pressure of their fear. That's what they crave, but don't know how to ask for. So they test and test and test until your response teaches them something they never learned growing up. Connection doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Think about it like this. They're not challenging you to see you fail. They're challenging you to feel safe enough to stay. If you pass, they may never say it out loud. They may not even admit it to themselves. But inside, something shifts. A wall cracks. A breath releases. And for the first time, maybe in years, they begin to believe maybe this person won't hurt me. Maybe this person can handle all of me, not just the curated version. But you can't fake it. You can't pretend to be grounded. You have to be it. You have to stop seeing their testing as personal attacks and start recognizing them for what they are, emotional survival strategies. Every emotional jab is really a whispered question underneath, can you love me even here? And if the answer is yes, but with healthy boundaries, clear self-respect, and emotional regulation, that's when the dynamic starts to change. That's when the avoidant slowly and cautiously starts to trust. Because they're not just looking for love, they're looking for a home in another human being, a home that doesn't collapse when the wind blows. So when they challenge you, don't crumble, don't chase, don't try to over-explain, just stay rooted. Let your presence say what your words don't need to. Because sometimes the avoidant doesn't need reassurance, they need resistance. The kind of resistance that holds firm, not in pride, but in power. Not to fight them, but to show them you won't leave just because it gets difficult. And that right there becomes the most undeniable evidence of love they've ever seen. Sometimes the ones who push you the hardest are the ones who need you to stay the most. Ever been around someone who normally keeps their emotions locked down like a vault, then out of nowhere they say something deeply personal, something raw, something real? Maybe they talk about their childhood or their shame or a moment that changed them. It comes out quick, almost by accident, before you can even process it. They pull back, change the subject, disappear for a few days. That moment, that wasn't random, that was the leak. See, when an avoidant starts to fall for you, it doesn't unfold in smooth, predictable steps. It comes in cracks, in glimpses, in moments where the mask slips and the truth bleeds out because they simply can't hold it in anymore. But here's the key. It's not controlled, and it's definitely not comfortable. It's emotional pressure overflowing. Avoidants are conditioned to suppress. They survive by compartmentalizing pain and managing attachment with emotional distance. Vulnerability for them is like standing on the edge of a cliff with no harness. It triggers panic. So when they open up, even for a split second, it's not because they're fully ready. It's because their heart has outpaced their defenses. And in that rare window, you see the person behind the armor. That single confession, that story they never told anyone, that random statement that left you speechless, that was a sacred moment, a signal. Their unconscious way of saying, you've reached me, I'm scared, but I trust you, even if only for a second. The tragedy is most people miss this because the moment is so fleeting, the shift is so subtle, and right after it, the avoidant retreats. They might act cold, withdraw, overcompensate with sarcasm or distance. That retreat doesn't mean they regret opening up. It means they feel exposed, like they just walked out into the open with no armor, realized it, and sprinted back to shelter. It's a kind of emotional whiplash. But the fact that they even allowed themselves to be seen at all, that's massive. That tells you something no text message, no compliment, no gesture ever could. You are emotionally significant to them. Even if you didn't know them, let's go deeper into why this happens. Psychologically, avoidants are often high in internal shame, not guilt, shame. The belief that if someone really sees them, all of them, they'll be rejected, abandoned, or judged. So they live their lives wearing a mask, composed, indifferent, capable. When love enters the picture, real love, it threatens that illusion. Suddenly someone shows up who doesn't want the mask, who wants to know them, not control them. Not fix them, just see them. And that's terrifying. Because if you see them, you might leave. That's the risk. That's the wound. That's the core fear that keeps avoidance stuck in half-love, half-science relationships for years. So when they do open up, especially unexpectedly, it's not a slip-up, it's a spiritual breakthrough. It's the psyche momentarily surrendering. And it usually comes in nonlinear, spontaneous moments. Driving in a car, lying in bed, during a fight, right after sex. Their guard lowers for a flash, and the truth floods out. And here's what you must understand. How you respond in that moment shapes everything. If you dismiss it, get uncomfortable, or try to solve them, they'll shut down harder than before. But if you stay grounded, just witness them without judgment, you give them an experience they may have never had before, emotional exposure without punishment. Hey, that's where love becomes transformation. Because real intimacy is not built on surface level romance. It's built on moments where one soul says to another, this is who I really am. Do you still want me? When an avoidant gives you even a sliver of that truth, and you meet it with calm presence, something inside them changes. They may not tell you, they may even disappear for a while to process it, but the seed is planted. And that seed is more powerful than any chase, any strategy, any text game. It's real, it's soul deep. And if it's nurtured, not smothered, it can lead to emotional intimacy most people never experience. So when that moment comes, and trust me, you'll know it when it does, don't overanalyze, don't push, don't retreat. Just hold the space, let their truth land, let your silence be acceptance, let your stillness be the safety they never had. Is sometimes the most important thing you can say in response to vulnerability is nothing at all. Just presence, just steadiness, just the unshakable energy of you're safe here. And that's what breaks the cycle. That's what shifts the dynamic. That's when an avoidant stops protecting themselves from love and starts trusting they can survive it. So when they open up, don't just listen to their words, listen to what it cost them to say it. Sometimes the quietest confession is the loudest evidence of love. Have you ever experienced that moment where everything felt right? You connected, you laughed, maybe even shared something intimate, and then suddenly they go cold. The avoidant partner who just hours ago looked into your soul like you were their only truth suddenly becomes distant, dry, emotionally flat. You think to yourself, did I do something wrong? Did I misread the moment? But let me tell you, this isn't about you. It's about what that connection triggered inside them. When an avoidant pulls away right after an intimate moment, what you're witnessing isn't rejection. It's not emotional manipulation either. It's emotional survival. It's their nervous system trying to regain control after feeling something that deep down they don't believe they're allowed to feel. You see, to an avoidant, love isn't just vulnerability, it's danger, it's exposure. It threatens the emotional control they built their identity on. Most avoidants learned early in life that closeness meant pain or pressure or betrayal. They internalized the belief, if someone gets too close, I'll lose myself, or worse, I'll be abandoned when they see the real me. So they built their entire adult strategy around avoiding that emotional whiplash. Now fast forward to the moment you get close. It doesn't even have to be sexual. It could be an emotional breakthrough, a laugh that cracked open their armor, a quiet moment where they forgot to protect themselves. In that moment, their heart opened, their defenses dropped. For a split second, they weren't avoiding, they were feeling, and then the panic hits. That closeness activates a subconscious alarm system. It says, too close, too dangerous, shut it down. And so they do what they've always done to survive, they detach. The avoidance sudden withdrawal is not a conscious decision to hurt you. It's an unconscious reflex to protect themselves. But here's the irony. The stronger their feelings for you, the harder they pull away. That withdrawal, that emotional freeze, that confusing silence after connection, it's not because you mean nothing. It's because you might mean too much. And that kind of emotional significance threatens their entire system of safety. This is what most people misunderstand. They think love should always bring people closer. But for avoidants, love isn't just desire, it's risk. The more they feel, the more they lose control. And for someone who survived by controlling everything, especially their emotions, love feels like chaos. So the moment they feel intimacy, the internal narrative kicks in. What if they hurt me? What if I lose myself again? What if this doesn't last? And instead of leaning in, they retreat. They might ghost you, criticize you, get distant or cold, all as a way to neutralize the intensity of what they just felt. But don't mistake that behavior as apathy. In fact, that post-intimacy pullback is often the most honest indicator that they do care. Because if they didn't feel anything, they'd have no reason to run. They wouldn't need space. There wouldn't be anything to protect. What you're seeing is emotional distance, the war between their feelings and their fear. One part of them wants to get closer. The other part is screaming to get out. And the part that wins is the one they've practiced most, the escape. Now, here's what you need to understand. Your job is not to chase, not to fix, not to beg for clarity. That only reinforces their fear that closeness comes with pressure. Your role is to stay grounded, to give space, but not in resentment, to maintain presence, but not in panic. Because here's the truth. Avoidants are not drawn to people who smother them. They're drawn to people who can handle their retreat without collapsing. People who don't personalize their fear. People who say, I see what you're doing, and I'm still here. But I'm not abandoning myself to reach you. And that's what breaks the cycle. Because when they see that intimacy didn't destroy you, when they realize they can have connection without chaos, that's when they start to trust. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually, quietly, like a room that warms up 1 degree at a time. So the next time you feel them pull away after a deep moment, don't panic. Don't question your worth. Don't try to re-explain the moment to make it make sense. Just understand. You touched something in them they weren't ready to feel. And they need time to digest it alone in silence in their own way. But don't doubt the impact. Because sometimes the deepest intimacy isn't measured in how someone moves toward you, but in how deeply they need to pull away to process what you made them feel. If you can hold your center in that silence, you become the one person they never expected to trust. And that, more than anything, is the beginning of real love. One of the most misunderstood patterns in avoidant love is this. When they fall for you, they don't fantasize about you. They start seeing themselves through you. And that's what makes it so complicated. Because in that reflection, they don't just see admiration or attraction, they see their own insecurities, their unfinished stories, their fears of being truly seen. You become a mirror, not a fantasy. And that's where things get real. With someone secure, love can feel like a shared dream. Both people co-creating a safe emotional space. But with an avoidant, that dream turns into a psychological confrontation. You may think you're offering support, connection, warmth, but what they're actually experiencing is exposure. You represent the truth they've been avoiding about themselves. That's why their behavior often becomes inconsistent, even strange, when emotions deepen. Because the avoidant doesn't just love you, they project onto you. They assign meaning to your reactions. Your silence feels like abandonment. Your emotional strength feels like judgment. Your calmness makes them question their chaos. Suddenly, you're not just a partner, you're a symbol of what they crave and fear and don't believe they can ever truly have. And that's what most people miss. You'll hear them say things like, I don't know why I'm acting like this, or you deserve better, or I'm not good at this stuff. What they're really saying is, you make me aware of everything I've spent my life trying to avoid. Because love, real love, doesn't just bring comfort. It brings confrontation. It pulls up everything unresolved, everything buried. And you, unknowingly, become the person who holds up that emotional mirror. And this is important. If they didn't care, you wouldn't have this effect on them. They wouldn't be triggered. They wouldn't feel exposed. The fact that you rattle them is not a weakness in you. It's a reflection of how powerful your presence actually is. You've bypassed the avoidance defenses in a way even they didn't expect. And now they don't know whether to run from you or towards you. That's why their behavior becomes unpredictable. One moment they seem open, the next they're distant. They might compliment you, then criticize you. Engage, then vanish. It's not because you're playing games. It's because they're emotionally torn. You awaken the very thing they thought they had control over, the desire to connect. And that desire scares them because it threatens the identity they've built on being self-reliant and emotionally untouchable. Now here's the turning point. If you respond to this by taking it personally, by shrinking, doubting yourself, or trying to appease them, you fall into their internal narrative. I'm too much. People leave when I'm seen. But if you hold your center, if you remain steady, clear, and emotionally grounded, you disrupt that narrative. You teach them, not through words, but through presence, that connection doesn't require performance. It requires authenticity. You don't have to convince an avoidant to love you. They already do. What they're fighting is not you, it's what you represent. You represent the possibility of being loved without needing to hide. And that to them feels impossible. So the most powerful thing you can do is keep reflecting truth without demanding transformation. Let them see themselves. Let them wrestle with the reflection. And when they get uncomfortable, don't flinch. Don't try to become smaller just to soothe their discomfort. That only reinforces their belief that love always comes at the cost of self. Instead, model something different. Show them that love can be spacious, not smothering. That presence can be powerful even in silence. That you can witness someone's darkness without trying to fix it and still choose to stay whole in yourself. Because ultimately, what breaks the avoidance emotional cycle isn't pressure. It's consistency in the face of their inconsistency. It's you not bending just to earn their affection. It's you refusing to carry their unhealed shame and choosing instead to reflect back their potential. And that changes everything. Because for an avoidant, love has never been safe until now. Until someone comes along who sees their chaos, their hesitation, their emotional retreat, not as rejection, but as fear disguised as strength. And instead of demanding they open up, that person just stays real, calm, unshaken, unapologetically themselves. That's what awakens trust. That's what reprograms their nervous system. That's what makes love for them finally feel like home. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do for someone is simply not abandon yourself while loving them.